Hey everyone, I'm going to compare three AI stocks in this video and answer which one I think is the best AI stock to buy for 2024. The three AI stocks I'm going to consider are Nvidia, Microsoft, and AMD. I'm going to look at their revenue, their profit, their cash flow, the return on invested capital, and valuation to determine which one I think is the best one to buy. So let's jump right in.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
All right, so the first metric we're going to compare is revenue. But first, let's look at the total addressable market opportunity for artificial intelligence. According to Statista, the total addressable market for artificial intelligence is expected to grow to $1.85 trillion by the year 2030. That would be up significantly from the $207.9 billion in 2023. Artificial intelligence is popularized by large language models like ChatGPT, but there are more applications like driverless car technology, recommender systems, and more. The companies that stand to benefit from the growth in this AI surge is companies like Amazon, Nvidia, Alphabet, Microsoft, and more. Investors getting in today could realize exponential returns from investments that capitalize on the growing effectiveness of artificial intelligence. All right, so now we know how big this market's going to be, and we're just at the beginning of this explosion in spending for AI. Nvidia has already seen that explosion. You can see that 205% revenue growth. Microsoft is just now implementing those benefits, those large language models into its suite of products, and you're going to start to see incremental improvement in Microsoft's revenue as a result of its investment in OpenAI and ChatGPT, although that growth is not going to be anywhere near what Nvidia is experiencing. AMD also investing in its capabilities in AI, trying to catch up to Nvidia, but AMD is going to be slower. We haven't seen that boost yet from AMD, although many buyers of these chips are hoping for a competitor to rise up because they don't want to be so dependent on Nvidia, because that would give Nvidia more negotiating power when selling its chips. And so rivals would buy AMD's chips even if they're not of the highest quality, even if they're not the latest tech, just to provide some balance and give themselves more negotiating power and lower supply chain risk. The next metric I wanted to compare these three on is their operating profit margin. And you can see Nvidia and Microsoft are in the lead here. Nvidia taking over most recently with a 45.94% operating profit margin. This is likely to improve over the next 4 quarters as well, as Nvidia's surge in revenue and profitability continues throughout 2024. Microsoft continues to improve, although Nvidia is just in a class of its own right now, benefiting tremendously from the rising effectiveness of AI. AMD, we're still waiting on AMD to come out and catch up to Nvidia, and you can see that with its operating profit margin just now recovering. This dip here is due to the slower computing sales in 2023. That's expected to improve in 2024 as well. So AMD's profitability is likely to improve in 2024, although I don't think it's going to approach anywhere near Microsoft or Nvidia in the next year. The next metric to look at here is the cash flow from operations to sales in the trailing 12-month period. And in this metric, Microsoft has held the lead for the better part of the last decade, although Nvidia is catching quickly at 41.99% compared to 43.5% for Microsoft. Again, AMD trailing in a distant third place at 8.38%, heading in the wrong direction, but I do believe this will improve for AMD in 2024 for the factors I already mentioned on profitability. Okay, the next thing I wanted to compare is the return on invested capital. This measures how good a business is in using investor money to invest in the business. So how good are they at turning money into more money, right? That's what all investors try to do. Take their existing base of money, invest it in a company, and get back more money than they put in. And so this tells you how good the company is at doing that, at taking your funds and then investing it and growing it. Now, before you say that Nvidia, Microsoft, and AMD haven't taken investor money for a very long time, remember, when any of these companies makes profits and keeps those profits, it's keeping investor money, it's taking investor money, because ultimately those profits belong to shareholders. But what companies do sometimes, companies that have good growth opportunities, instead of paying that money to shareholders and dividends and share buybacks, they will say, we're going to retain those earnings and we're going to invest it back in the business. We're going to invest in research and development. We're going to create manufacturing for these new technologies. We're going to add new services. We're going to hire more people, etc., etc. We're going to use that money to grow the business. That's no different than taking new money from investors. Although it doesn't seem that way because they're using generated cash flow and retaining those earnings ultimately belong to investors. And so when they reinvest in the business, they're taking investor money. And companies that have good return on invested capital, you want them to do that because they're making more money. And so you say, sure, keep using that money because you're doing a good job. Keep doing it, right? You're taking my money and multiplying it. I want you to keep doing that. And so let's look at these three on that metric. Nvidia in the lead here at 52.18%. That's a remarkable return on invested capital. That's one of the best in the industry. I don't think Nvidia can sustain this for the long term, although for the next year or two, perhaps it will because of these significant drivers, including AI. So that's going to be really good for them. Microsoft, second place here at 31%. And then again, AMD in a distant third place at 0.36%. But you can see prior to this drawdown, AMD had done an excellent job in growing this metric, and they were in first place between 2021 and the early part of 2022. They had a big advantage against Microsoft and Nvidia, although that did draw down. Now, I don't think they're going to come back to that leadership position in the near term, although I wouldn't be surprised if AMD over the next 2 years makes considerable progress on this front as well. And finally, I wanted to compare these three on valuation, and you can see they're all similarly valued when looking at the forward price to earnings. However, surprisingly, Nvidia is the cheapest here, trading at a forward PE of 29.72. Then you have Microsoft trading at a forward PE of 30.93. And finally, AMD at a forward PE of 33.64. I think this is because the market anticipates AMD is going to have a big recovery here in 2024 because of rising computer sales, because of its new innovations in AI. It's going to make great progress in the year, so investors are willing to pay up for that. And that's why it's trading at the most expensive valuation. However, given all of the factors we considered, Nvidia was really strong in many of the factors, and it's trading at the cheapest valuation. So if I was to pick one of these three AI stocks to buy today, I would pick Nvidia. If you liked the video you just saw and you want to see more just like it, please subscribe to the channel. I can't keep this channel free without the support of viewers like you. And if you're already subscribed, thank you, and I appreciate your support.